Hello, everyone. I'm glad that you could join us today. And we are here for the interactive worksheet session using Google Slides. I do want to remind you that because we are streaming this to YouTube, there's a bit of a lag. So if you have questions and such, you'll definitely be able to pop those over into the chat on the side. Or if you're watching from your cell phone, if you turn your cell phone, right side up, there should be a chat at the bottom where you can type in some questions. We are going to do our best to get to those questions as best as we can. And if for whatever reason we don't, I will share my email at the very end so that you can send me those. Okay, so I'm very excited that you're here. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over and get us started on this presentation. All right, guys, so welcome. If you are from Livingston Parish, we're so glad to have you. If you are not, we are also so glad to have you. I know we were sharing our links out, and so thank you for joining us and learning a little bit with us. What I'd like to do is go ahead and start out. If you are a Livingston Parish attendee, we would like for you to go to tinyurl.com/LPPS attendance. If you have your cell phone handy, you could just use your camera to scan that QR code and it should take you right to that link so you can go ahead and check in. And that is for our door prizes and the entry for the interactive panel. So go ahead and take care of that. I'm going to give you guys just a second to do that so we can make sure to get you entered. If you're not from our parish or our district, you are welcome to just hang out for just a second. And again, this is, if you select Monday, we are the interactive worksheet session in Google Slides. All right, while y'all are finishing that up, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Casey Moscow. I have spent the past 10 years at Doyle High School teaching science, chemistry, and AP chemistry. I'm also our school's social media coordinator as well as our NIMSY site coordinator. And I'm a mama with 3 kids and enjoy my coffee and vacation. And what I'd love to do is just to have a little bit of interaction since we were not able to meet in person, is if you could just go to the chat and tell me which school you teach at, what grade level you teach, and if you feel up to it, something interesting about yourself. So I'd love to see what you guys are doing and where you're tuning in from. So again, married with 3 kids, love my coffee, reading, and vacations. And so one of our vacations is about to come to an end very abruptly. And so as we get ready for our new type of learning this year with some distance learning, I'm hoping to bring you something that you can really use and implement very quickly. Okay, before we get to that, a little announcement, some housekeeping. If you have any questions, type them into the chat. Again, if we don't get to your questions, you can always email me later. And then finally, we are scheduled to be live until 11:15. I do have a good bit of information and demonstrating lots of skills and practice for you. So again, feel free to email me at the end. I'll post my email. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into what are we covering. So I want to show you first, before we really get into the how-to, I want to show you some possibilities. What can you use interactive worksheets for? And how are they actually different from just pushing a Word document or a Google Doc out to your students? And then I'll show you how to actually build those and create those interactive worksheets. And then finally, what is that if we cannot share them with our students, grade them, give some feedback, and then also return them? So our students need to be able to see our feedback on those interactive worksheets. So first, we're going to get into some possibilities. So if we have any math teachers out there, I know many times our math teachers have our students plot different points on graph paper or build graphs and so forth. So you could definitely use an interactive worksheet to have students actually do like a drag and drop. They can drop a point that matches, what you give them. You could also use this, math teachers, as a way to have your students drag and drop equations that match a line that they see on their interactive worksheet. Or you could have them just type that equation onto the line. If you do a lot of labeling, you want your students to label diagrams, whether it's cells, the skeleton, different spacecraft or instruments. You can also use interactive worksheets in that regard. And then you can have them simply fill in blanks as well. And so they can type in words into a text box. They can do drag and drop in this example as well, where they're dragging those words to match what that little box is pointing to. I've also seen this used with classification. So if I give my students pictures for physical and chemical changes, they could drag and drop those images into the correct portion of the Venn diagram. You could use it in history for a similar manner where students are classifying what they know and what they have. And again, here's more examples of what you can use this for. So if you have any type of pre-made worksheets, whether you've purchased them or produced them yourself, whether they came with your curriculum, you can definitely convert them into an interactive worksheet and use them in a way that format-wise is pretty simple for your students to use. All right, so I can hear some of you asking, well, if we're just doing worksheets, why can I not push my Word or Google Doc out to my students? And really you can. There's no reason you cannot. I'll tell you a few of the issues that I ran into this past year. So I have been a Google Classroom user now for almost 2 years. And I was beginning to share some Word documents with my students that went along with some online labs. And part of the issues, or some of the issues I ran into, was as they began to type into the Word document, things began really shifting all over the page. Things began moving. As a science teacher, I use a lot of graphics. So the graphics were shifting, or tables and charts were moving all over the page, or they would end up halfway off the page and we couldn't get them back on the page. And so what ended up happening, and of course we were still in class while we were doing this, is I was spending so much time helping students with formatting issues, more so than I was content and helping them understand. And so I ended up learning a little bit before we went out for our stay-at-home orders here in Louisiana. I ended up learning how I could put this content into an interactive worksheet in Google Slides that would prevent this from happening for the students. So there's two main reasons that I recommend using Google Slides as a way to present your worksheets. And the first is that Slides provide you a wonderful workspace around your document where you can place icons or you can place word choices or things of that nature. And you don't get that in Docs or Word. Think of Google Slides as being a type of virtual desk. So I have my desktop, I have my handout on there where I'm showing my learning, and maybe on the outside in a traditional classroom, our students might have some manipulatives, they might have some bingo chips or whatever it is they're using, and they can drag and drop those and use those with their learning. Well, you can do the same thing in Slides. You can provide digital manipulatives for your students. So it's really a really neat way of integrating that. This method that I'm going to show you is also going to prevent things from getting really, really messy with your students whenever they type. And so when we do distance learning or virtual learning, we're not there to always help our students with their formatting issues when they are using these digital platforms. So Google Slides is going to help lock that down and prevent things from getting super messy. So then what's the secret? So what's the difference? So the issue is that we're going to take our documents and we're going to make them images. So we're going to cause them to become JPEGs or PNG files. And we're going to then use inside of the slideshow, we're going to insert the image of our worksheet into the background of the slide. And guys, what this does is it locks it down. So if a student goes to type on top of it, now the table is not shifting all over the place. The images are not moving. So you could put a text box on top of where they would normally be typing, and things don't get crazy all over your worksheet. So that is how we're going to approach this. So from here, I'm going to actually segue and begin to show you the steps that you will need to follow. And so the main thing, I'm going to go to google.com first. Okay, when you go to google.com, at the top right-hand side of your screen, you will notice that you either have a blue login button, or you have, if you hover over the little icon that's to the right, you are already logged in. And you can see when I hover there that I'm logged in as myself at livingstonsschools.net. So Livingston teachers, you must log into your Google account using your livingstonsschools.net. If you are logged in using a personal Gmail, you will not be able to access our district settings. So please make sure that you are doing that, because everything that we do, we need to be able to push that to our students, and we need to be able to have access to our Google Classroom. So that's the first thing. We will share those credentials with you at a later date, but it's usually just your first name dot last name at livingstonsschools.net, and then it should be your computer password to get logged in. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to create a new slide deck. So you can do this a number of ways. You can go to drive.google.com. And what's neat about Google is all the applications they have for you guys. If you have google.com at the end, you can always put the application you want in front. So it can be slides.google.com, or it can be forms.google.com, docs.google.com. And so that's a really neat thing. From your drive, you can select whatever folder you want to go to. So I'm going to kind of click on my drive here. And if I want to be in a particular folder, and you can see I have folders in the center of my screen, then I can go ahead and click on that particular folder, and then I can go new. And after you click new, you scroll down towards the bottom, and you'll see there's Google Slides. So that's one way. You can click here and open a blank presentation. Another way is just from the search bar at the top, you can type in slides.google.com. Enter, and then you'll be taken to this page. So here's your main little slides. You can click blank presentation from there. And then a little hack just to save you a few clicks. If I need a brand new slide document and I don't need to come here and pull up one that is open, I can do slides.new. You can also do that for docs. You can also do that for forms. If you put .new at the end, it will open you a completely blank presentation. So again, do all of that, but make sure you're logged into your livingstonsschools.net account. Okay, from here, the next thing I want to show you is that once we're logged in and we get our blank account open, I want to get rid of these boxes because they're technically just in the way, okay? Now, as I begin, I can title this presentation here, and I'm going to call this Sample Worksheet 1. Okay, you can give it a title. I could click on the folder icon that is to the right, and I can place this document or this slide deck into a folder that I want it to be sorted into. So that's another way where you can organize and move it to where it needs to go. Okay, from here, you can then take and change the page setup. Now, this is what is, I say as a teacher, kind of life-changing in slides, because most of us tend to think slides is a way to just present, but you can actually change the page layout in this document and in this deck. So the way we change the page layout is we go File, and all the way towards the bottom, you have a page setup, and so you click it. From here, it's showing you, it tends to default widescreen, 16:9, and if I click it, I can make a custom layout. I can then come in and make this 7:10, or I can do 8.5:11, which is our traditional paper size. And when I click apply, look at that. It is literally looks like a paper or a piece of paper. And so this is really neat because you can start thinking about slides outside of that stereotypical way of thinking about them. You can have students working and building pages that you end up binding together in a book for your classroom or something of that nature. Okay, from here, this is where it gets fun. So I need an image of a worksheet. And so what I've done is I've opened up my folder And I had I asked a few teachers, send me some of the worksheets you use in your classrooms. I'm a science teacher, upper level, and so mine aren't as fun as some of these that they sent me. But what is kind of neat is that if you open a PDF file, something you already have, you can take a picture of that particular. I'm going to change the view so we can see it. I want it to fit height. Okay, you can change or take a picture of any of these worksheets and save them as a JPEG. Now, if you're a Windows user, the way you're going to do that is you can come over here to the search bar that's at the bottom of your screen, or you can press the Window key on your keyboard. And so when you do that, if you start typing snip, my favorite tool is the Snipping Tool. Okay, so it's an application that's already on the computer for you if you're a Windows user, our Livingston teachers. If you click that, you get the option now to come in and change some of these settings. And so I'm going to say no delay. I want a rectangular snip. And then I can click new. And then when I click or highlight this part of the image, I now have this entire space here where I can save that as an image. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and show you how we can do this. So let's say I come down here, and this is a circle and sort activity that one of the teachers sent me. And if I go ahead and select new, get my snipping tool ready, or screen capture tool, and now I have the image of the worksheet, and I want to save it and make sure that I'm saving it at the bottom as a JPEG or PNG. Okay, so we will call this sample worksheet 1, go along with the title of my, and I want it here. Okay, now, whenever I come back to my slide deck, what we'll do from here is we'll go and change the background. So once I have an image saved, I'm good, I can move forward. So there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Right here, you should have this word background on the toolbar. So you can click that word and it will bring up options for you to insert your image. You should also be able to do that from slide. And then if you scroll down, you also have change background. Now guys, if this seems really fast and you're like, hold up, moving too fast, I will post a link to the entire presentation that I have, and it walks you step by step through this. Okay, so don't worry, that link will be in the description of the video a little bit later. So, and again, email me, okay? Email me if you have questions going back and you can't quite remember what to do. But slide, change background, or again, background right here. When you do that, you have some choices. Change the color, or look at that. We can choose an image and upload an image. So if we click choose image and I'm in the upload section, I can just take that specific worksheet that I just had. So there's my sample worksheet, and I can click it and drag it over. And when I do that, Google likes to let you click and drag, which I love. And so click done. And look how wonderful. So now there is an actual worksheet that is sitting here on the screen. Can it be copied and pasted? Yes, it can. So another really, really neat thing, and I'm going to add a new slide and show you guys this as well. From the background, if you want to insert your background, choose an image. Do you see the other options you have? You can actually go to a Google Drive. You can do a Google image search for worksheets. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to show you this. Look. Adams worksheet. Now, I would be careful here with copyright because you don't know what you're getting. Google image search is usually going to filter out things that you cannot use that might have a copyright on them. Another neat thing, though, is if you were to go to Google and you were to find or search for a particular worksheet. So I'm going to just call this Adams worksheet. Hit enter. You do get a bunch of images that pop up. And so one of the things that I really liked about this as well is you can click on any of these that you want, and you can right click it And there is an option here to save the image as, or copy the image address. And so you can go in and you can actually insert an image URL. Or if it's something you already have online, you can even copy an image address and you can paste it in to this option using by URL. Okay, so copying and pasting, as far as, I'm not sure if that question was referring to, could you just copy the image and paste it to the slide? Okay, so let me show you why you wouldn't want to do that. You always want to insert it as a background. If I copy this image, which I'm doing straight from my snipping tool, and then I Control V, okay, now I do have my worksheet there. Okay, so you could do it this way. That's wonderful. But when my students open this up in their Google Classroom, they can still move this around. Okay, and it's not going to stay still for them. I'm going to come back to where I put it as the background. So now I'm looking in the background and my students cannot move this worksheet. Think of it as locking this worksheet down entirely. So they can't delete questions. They can't erase something on accident, especially with our younger ones who may not be as familiar with an undo button or how to restore things. Putting the image into the background is really the best way to go. It locks down that image so things cannot be moved. And sure, maybe our older students can figure out how to go in and change it and delete it, but they're probably not going to be looking that far and digging that far. Okay, so I definitely would not suggest copying and pasting the image on for this reason, because now they can move it around and that kind of defeats the purpose of locking down that image. Okay. So now that we have our image inserted, and again, you can do this with anything, I would like to go back and show you other ways to get an image of your worksheets, okay? I want to give you some, I'm going to plug a few apps here because there are a few favorites of mine for taking things that I may not have in a digital format. Some of you have been teaching a while. You might have things that you are using that are not in a digital format, but you have that paper in a folder that you use every year. And so what I'd like to show you are some ways that you can get that worksheet online, okay? So let's go ahead and look at that. So one of the things I recommend is if you're a smartphone user and you're not opposed to using your smartphone to help you get teacher stuff done, then I really recommend using some cell phone apps to make this happen. Okay, first things first, if you're a OneDrive user, you could always use the OneDrive app to upload a file directly to your Microsoft OneDrive. So that's an option. This one I highly recommend. If you get the Google Drive app, there's a way to add files using your cell phone, and you can use your camera to take a picture of that worksheet. And so what's great about the Google Drive app is the worksheet is uploaded directly to your drive, which means when you go to slides to create your interactive worksheet, your JPEG, your picture is already ready for you. There are no more clicks you have to do. Okay. Going back to other platforms like OneDrive, you would have to then either download it or just upload it from your OneDrive into your Google Drive. Okay, but Google Drive's really quick because it's just a click, literally a click. You could use your iPhone Notes app where you can add, if you click the plus sign inside of the Notes app, when you're making a new note, you can actually take and create a PDF or you can create a picture and then you can just share it with yourself. So you can use the little share button and send it to yourself or email it to yourself. You also have the Microsoft Office app, which is wonderful. Many people are familiar with Microsoft Lens, which can capture many images and create them or take them from an image to a Word doc for you. And so that's a really neat app. Tomorrow I'm presenting, or I'm sorry, Wednesday I'm presenting on cell phone apps. So come join me for that to learn more about how these work. And then simply your camera app. Use your camera on your cell phone. Take a picture and then share that image with yourself through email. And so those are some ways you can do that. The tried and true method, of course, is you can always use a scanner. It's just scanners are going to take a little while. You've got to sit at your computer, you've got to scan it, you've got to save it as an image, and there's like 5 things you've got to press. So I recommend using a phone if you do not have a worksheet in a digital format already or saved to your computer. So those are definitely some ways that you can do that. Okay, let's go ahead back to our worksheet. So after you get your worksheet in and you get it placed, you now see that for your students, they are going to see this when they open that worksheet. And so right now, there's nothing they can really do with it because we haven't added any interactive components to it. Okay, so let's look at some ways we can make it interactive. First things first, since this is a circle and sort activity, thanks Michelle for sending this over, I can insert some shapes out to the side of my document. Okay, and it looks like per this worksheet at the bottom, we are trying to find AR words and OR words. And so again, this can work for any grade level. You just have to kind of think about what you want your students doing. This is obviously an elementary teacher, but I can actually change the fill color and make it transparent. So if you didn't see what I did, I clicked on my circle, come up to the fill color, and then I'm going to go transparent. The line, the border color right now is just black, so you could change the color if you want. You could pick whatever color you want. Let's go hot pink. And then the thickness is right next to that pencil where you're changing the color, and you can make the thickness even a little bit bigger so that it shows up. Okay, and so now the student could actually circle the OR and the AR words. Okay, so once you get a circle how you want it, if you are not familiar with these shortcuts, get familiar with them because they're going to make this process super fast. If you have the object selected, do Control-C or right-click, and we want to copy it, right? And so if we copy it, great. Now I can do Control-V, or I can right-click again, and everybody see the shortcut for paste is Control-V. So from here, I can Control-V over and over and over and over. And then I can move those circles around or just allow my students to drag and drop and circle the words that they see that are AR or OR words. Now, another neat thing is I can get rid of these for a minute and show you that one more time. So again, if this is circle and sort, I can go to shape. Okay, so there's a little circle here and a square. You come down to shapes, and then there's a circle. Choose any type of shape. You can make it a box. And then what I can do is I can actually come in and make transparent so that my circle is empty. Make my border color pink here, my line color a little bit darker, thicker. And then this is one of my favorite features of using this slide method. If you come up here to text box in the toolbar, if you click on text box, you can click and drag and then use the fill tool to put a color in there. Okay, so one of my favorite things is creating virtual sticky notes for my students. Drag the pink circle to the AR words. And I might put all my pink circles on this side. So I might copy here and I might paste, several of them here and just space them out for my students. Once you have this template though, you'll have it forever because I'm going to show you later, we're going to use this in Google Classroom to share with our students. And so it's not going to go anywhere. We're going to have our original. Okay, I can highlight my little virtual sticky note and Control-C, and then over here, drag it to the right and say, use the blue circle to highlight the OR words. And then I can click on one of my circles, Control-C to copy it, Control-V to paste it, pull it over here. And then if you go up to the line tool for border color, you click, you can now make it a blue circle. Okay. And then Control-C to copy that blue circle and paste a bunch of them in for your students and just kind of spread them out. And really, in Livingston Parish, with us being in a blended model, we'll be able to help our students understand how all of this works and the format and so forth. So this is really neat. Now down here, where they have to write them. Now, obviously, this is our lower level students, our younger students. So there are some extensions that we can get. Cami allows the students to annotate and to write. If you don't have that option, then that's where I would recommend, if you want your students to actually come in and write the words somewhere, use a text box. So if you come in and place a text box, what I liked to do over our virtual learning this past spring is I would fill the text boxes in blue, and then I would copy, and if I wanted the font to be different or something, I would change it before. And then I would just Control C, and I would paste however many I needed and drag them. And so my students knew wherever there was blue, they would need to type in that box. There should be an answer wherever that blue text box is. So then you can do this. Okay, so that's one really neat option to creating some interactive worksheets. Now, let's say that I want to do something different and I have an older student. Let's see what else we have. What's another example? Let me show you guys this one. So I've already snipped some of these images. So here is a worksheet that the students would normally cut out in class and they would color and paste, right? So for this type of drag and drop activity, you could come into this slide. It's a new one. Now, if you're going to make a new worksheet, guys, go to a new slide doc. I'm showing you in one slide deck for the purpose of presenting. But if I'm doing this for my classroom, I'm going to open a brand new slide deck because I don't want to push out 10 worksheets to my students and then be confused. So make sure you're doing that you're not putting everything you're working on in one slide deck. And so again, to reiterate, you can come in and you can delete the boxes that are on this particular page. Get rid of them. Go into File, Page Setup, Custom, Apply. And so, whoops, I didn't change my dimensions. Page Setup, Custom, and then if I want it, page size 8.5 by 11. Now when I come into background and I want to choose another type of activity or image that I already have, I can go browse my computer or I can already have a folder open. And so I would like to show you, let's do this one. And in just a minute, I'm even going, whoops, in just a minute, I'm going to also show you some for older students. Click done. Okay, so again, my kids cannot move any of this around. And these were from PDFs, but if you have Word documents, they tend to shift these boxes around if you've built it in Word. And so it gets super messy for our students. Okay, here is something where our students would normally color this in class. They would cut it out and they would paste it. And sadly, if you're not going to see your students in person, then you can't do those types of activities, right? Well, you can simulate it. However, they're not getting those motor skills if you use Screen Snip again. So I'm going to pull up my snipping tool. I'm going to go to New, and I'm literally going to snip each picture and just copy it, click over here on the side, and Control V to paste it. So now I've got that. And I'm going to repeat the process. So here's my snipping tool. I'm going to do this for every single little image I need. I'm going to copy it, click on the side, Control V to paste it. And so you just kind of keep going. And then your students can actually drag these over when it's time and put them where they go. Okay, so that's a really, really neat way of doing some of that and getting those interactions going from a distance. Okay, let's see what else you could do. You could also, and I'm going to show you some of these from my drive that I've done already, because it does take a few minutes to get one finished. And so for the sake of time, I want to show you some other possibilities. Here is a solar system interactive slide that I created. And so I found some images and again, just inserted the main image as the background to my slide. And then I took a shape. Let this load for a second. How are we doing on questions, Krista? Does anybody have a question?
The only there was one question that asked about is there any way to fix how blurry it ends up sometimes? But I think
okay. Yeah, so for whoever asked about the blurry images, it does depend how you get those images in. And if you're searching online, many times you're going to end up with a blurry image. Not all the time, but sometimes. And if you're using a screen snipping tool of a document or a picture, it usually comes out a lot better. I would suggest enlarging the image or opening it fully in a new tab. If you are in the internet and you right click on that image, let me show you this real quick. So this image I searched for Adam's worksheet. If I right click on it, I can actually open it in a brand new tab. And sometimes that makes them a little bit bigger to where when you use your snipping tool, it's not so pixelated. Okay, so that is definitely something that you have to play with. So if you right click, you can actually open image in a new tab. Okay, and that'll give you a little bit bigger image to snip. Okay, so let's see. We were looking at the solar system. So I literally was on a website, just screenshot the solar system. And then what I did was I took and used my screen snipping tool to essentially capture each planet. And every time I would capture a planet, I would paste it out to the left side of the slide. And so to get this portion here, so this was what my original looked like, just so you know. I inserted that image as the background so that when the kids are moving stuff, that's not moving. Now, I would not give them this slide, obviously. This is just so I could show you what I started with. What I did was I used that screen snipping tool to capture each and every little bitty planet and then did copy, and out to the left, I did paste. Now, I won't bore you with me doing that for every one of these over and over, but that's what you would do. Once you get used to your copy paste shortcuts, this moves extremely fast. Okay, so it doesn't take forever. I know it can seem overwhelming and well, that's a lot of work, but once you get used to the shortcuts, it is pretty quick. Okay, from there, what I did was, because I don't want my students seeing the planets and knowing what they are, I just took a text box, or you could do this with a shape. Okay, and insert a shape, and then now they're blacked out. The issue though is that these kids could move this and they could see it. So what you can do from there, and this is like all these aha moments coming together, is you can then do a new screen snip and save this image as your background. Okay, so save that, and then you can go insert that image as the background on your slide. Okay, so screen snipping tool really is a lifesaver when it comes to working with these interactive worksheets. Okay, the color on the box. So you highlight the object. So now that I have my rectangle highlighted, I can come up here to the fill color. So there's several options. You can make your shape transparent if you're just creating circles for your students to drag and drop. So you have transparent option, or you could fill it with whatever color you want. Okay, so I think for this one, I tried to choose, I don't know, some type of dark gray and whatever, and it ends up looking, you know, it still kind of stands out. But what ultimately happens is you can adjust that color, okay? But don't forget to go back and screenshot that whole slide to insert as your background so the students can't move this box to get the answers. Okay, from there, I took a little text box and made myself a sticky note again. So now I'm going to make a sticky note. I'm going to fill it with bright yellow, and I'm going to type in click and drag planets in the correct order. Left to right, however you need to word it. And you can obviously highlight this text, you can change the text, you can increase the font size. There's so much you can do. But ultimately, this is where you end up, okay? And so from here, if I'm looking at my interactive worksheet, when the students open this, now they can go ahead and begin dragging and dropping their planets in order. My very educated, how do y'all say it? My very So, oh, am I on the wrong slide? I'm on the wrong slide. Sorry, y'all. So it would be, but that's the idea. They would click and drag, And so now all of their planets, they're going to line up in order, and you can see that they have the opportunity to do that. Okay, so many ways. If you just want to do a like a text box for students to type into. I even have a music note example that I created where students in music classes can match the letters underneath the note page, and they can actually drag a music note over and place it where it goes. So if you're a music teacher, this could even apply to you. It's really about how creative are you going to be with your students, and you know, they can click and drag it where it goes. I don't know if that's the right place. Nope. Yes, maybe so, music teachers. So there are tons and tons and tons of options for you. Again, maybe you are an English teacher, and maybe you say, well, it is just easier if I'm just doing writing prompts, then I might just push out a Google Doc in my Google Classroom, because then my students, maybe they're only just typing in response to a prompt, and that is perfectly fine. This scenario here is going to work for more interaction, maybe things where your students were doing labeling, things of that nature. If you were to do a labeling worksheet like I had here in the original presentation, if you were doing a labeling worksheet, then what you would probably do, not there, 1 second guys, let me pull up my presentation, but you can insert text boxes over the top and allow those students just to type directly into their presentation or their worksheet. Again, that would prevent things from moving. So this was one. So if you have upper level students, maybe we don't use a lot of images here, but maybe we want them to do an activity online. We link that activity on a sticky note. So insert a text box as a sticky note out to the side with some directions, and you can then insert a link and hyperlink it. And then you come in, and once you get your boxes where you want them, fill them whatever color. I Control-C, and I just paste them wherever I want. I hit Control-V a bunch of times, and then I go in. And now when my students do that virtual lab, they can click and type instead of trying to do this in a Word doc and having an issue, or getting a PDF and having to print it, because we know so many of them are not going to be able to print all these packets off themselves. Okay, so I hope you kind of learned a little bit from that. And we really need to probably segue into our how to share this to your Google Classrooms and how to give some feedback on it. Okay, so I'm going to come in here to my Tech Week. Just bear with me for just a minute while I go ahead and get this ready to go. And while that's loading, I'd like to show you a few other options that I don't want to forget about. There is a Scribble tool that I think is really neat. It does, I was trying to see which one would be better to show this. It does default. So if you go up here to the toolbar where it says select line, and there's a scribble option. So scribble option is kind of neat because the student could write a number here, like the number 2, and it will leave it for them. Every time they pick their finger up or their stylus up, if they have a touch screen, then that Scribble tool does go away and they have to reselect it to go again. So let's say that you did want your students to actually write in how many of something. They could use a Scribble tool. Maybe you're an upper level teacher and that might come in more handy. You could also, let's say you're a math teacher in the high school level, you could also use drawings.google.com. So this is for probably not my elementary per se, but maybe more so my older students, okay? But if you open an untitled drawing, you can actually use this line tool in the toolbar and do scribble as well. And so my students can say 4x plus 7 equals y, okay? And now they have shown some math work. So if you want them to attach that to their work, you can always teach them how to copy and paste or select it and paste. So using the arrow, they can select, and then now they can right click copy, or I'm sorry, my selection went away. They can select it, and then they can right click copy, and then they can actually come back to their sample worksheets and they can Control V and paste their work. So that's really neat for maybe some older students if you can teach them how to use the drawing tool. Okay, back to sharing. We're going to kind of segue into how you get these out to your students. So the main thing is we're going to go to classroom.google.com. And from our class, whatever class it is that we are using, you're going to go to classwork, create. And so if this is an assignment they're going to be completing, I'm going to call this an assignment. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the add and go to my Google Drive and find that worksheet. Okay, so we just did sample worksheet 1 was the one we just built out. Usually the most recents are going to pop up here for you, but you can also click through and upload stuff and find it in your drive. And honestly, one of my favorites is the search feature. I'm pretty bad at organizing everything into folders. Sometimes I forget, and so it's nice to have the search feature if I know the name of the document. But we want that particular worksheet, so I'm going to click it and attach it. Okay, and so I'm just naming it whatever right now. Sample worksheet 1. Give it whatever point value it is going to be worth for my students. Maybe it's just 10 points. I'm going to make sure I have the class and the students selected, and then I'm going to give it a due date. Call it for today, tomorrow, and then of course I can select whichever topic, right, that I want this to go into. Okay, so if you're doing, this is all going to be different if you're organizing your Google Classroom differently. Once I assign it, then on the student end, so what I've done is I have logged in as my daughter's account. When she comes over to her classwork page, it might take just a second, but there's her work that just popped up. Okay, so she, right now I have her as a student in my Google Classroom. And so when she clicks on it from her view, she'll click on the file to open it. And you can see everything I just did and pushed out to her is there. So I want to make sure I'm sending her the template or the worksheet that, that I want her to work in. Now, one issue, I don't know if any of you caught it, is that when I go in and I look at what I did for this assignment, okay, if I want to edit it, and I'm under her again, I do not know that I pushed out a copy to each student. So let's talk about this for a minute, because this is a great thing to discuss, and it's a very important, and it's probably the most important step in this process. And that is, I push this out as students can view file. So when my student opens this, all she can do is see it. She cannot work in it. So that's going to be an issue for that student, because she's not going to be able to edit it or type into it or drag and drop. Okay, so let's talk about how it needs to be done. When you assign classwork create assignment and you attach that file, so let's add it again on my Google Drive. And I want to make sure, all this sample worksheet too, that I change this portion of the drop-down menu. Okay, so I would say this is a huge, huge step. We want to make a copy for each and every student. And then that way, each student, as they do work, they're doing this on their own copy, and it's going to actually show up in their classroom with their name already on it. So I'm just going to leave everything and just click assign so you can see that. And so now if we click back to my daughter's Google Classroom, okay, we'll let her sample worksheet 2 pop up real quick. There it is. So now when that pops up for her and she clicks on it, it's taking a second, so let's refresh. What's that say?
Make a copy for each student.
Mhm.
That option disappeared.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Have to make another one.
That's a good point. So whenever you, in the first demo where I posted sample assignment number 1, if I went in to just edit it, I do not have the option anymore to make a copy. And I'll show that in just a minute. This is what my daughter is seeing now. I didn't necessarily want to include all that. I had shown that for you guys, but basically now she can click and drag. Whereas before, the way I assigned it, she could not click it and drag when I left it as view only. Okay, so make a copy for each student. You'll also notice in the toolbar, her name is already populated onto this worksheet. So when she's ready to turn in her work, I'm going to see that it is hers. Okay, so she doesn't even have to put her name on it. It is already labeled for her. Now, what Krista was getting me to address is the first time I posted this worksheet into our Google Classroom, if I want to just, oh shoot, I forgot to give a copy to each student, and so I'm going to right click and edit it, I do not have the option to do that anymore. And you do not want to click Students Edit File because that gives them the rights to your original. So that's a big no-no. So what ends up happening in this situation is I'm probably just going to delete this assignment and get it out of their classroom because that one's not going to be useful to them. Okay, they could view it, but they can't do anything with it. So it's really important that from the assign step, you are selecting a copy for each student. So thank you to whoever brought that up. That is really important. Okay, so now let's say that my daughter does her work and all she has to do is close it because all her edits, everything she does, and I'll just go ahead and pull some over and show you guys. AR words are pink and OR words are blue, right? And so I'll just do a couple. Okay, so it's saving her work as she does. It says so up here, so make sure your students know that. If you get to see them and do some training with them, all she has to do is close it. There's no save she has to click. All she has to do is close it, okay? When she's looking at this assignment and she's finished with it and she's happy with it, let's train our students to click this turn in button. Okay, so that's going to help you on your end as the teacher, and it also helps them on their end as the student or on the parent's end to see that they did in fact turn in their classwork. Okay, so it's attached. Her work is attached. Now, as the teacher, and again, bear with me as I'm flipping back and forth, but as the teacher, what ends up happening when I click on this assignment is I can now see one student has turned this in. She was the only student in the class, so right now nobody else has the assignment. But if I had 20 students, it would say 19 have been assigned and 1 has turned it in. Okay, so when I'm ready to grade it, I click on 1 turned in, and you can see there's her assignment and her attachment. So from here, this is where, if you like learning new things and all this cute and fun stuff, this is where it gets fun. Okay, so from here, I click on her assignment. The names of the students will populate at the top left. It shows me they turned it in. And if I have more students and more documents, I can use the arrows to go back and forth. So once I review her work, see how her work is popping up, and there's her, she circled horse in blue and scarf in pink. And so once I see that she's done everything, I can come over here and I can actually assign the grade. Well, she gets a 2 out of 10 because she didn't complete. And then I can also add a comment. We need to complete the assignment and return it by Friday, July 31st, right? And then I'm going to post that so that she gets some feedback. If she did this really well, right, I can use the Bitmoji add-on. So if you don't have the Bitmoji add-on, this is how we can do some digital stickers. So I know in LPPS, I think a lot of our computers already have this Bitmoji add-on, but you can actually come in here and say, maybe they did a great job, right? I can say, great job. I have so much open, my computer is slowing down, but I can actually come in and say, good job, great job. And I can click and drag this image over and give her a sticker on her page. So that's really cute and really fun, and I can leave that. And so when I'm ready, I want to return these to the students. Now let's say that I go through and I grade all 20 students' papers from this drop-down menu. I can return multiple submissions, so I can send everybody's back, or I can click return and just return Madeline's paper to her. So there are other ways you can do it. So now for Madeline, if I had more students, use the right arrow to move to the next one, and you can grade these online just in a sequential order and get them done. You can add stickers, you can add feedback, and when you're ready, we want to make sure that we are returning them to the students, okay? And that is how you can provide some feedback, make it really fun and interactive for your students. The last thing I would like to show you, are there any other questions right now? Does anybody have questions? If you have a question, because I know, again, this is a lot and I'm moving kind of fast. So if you do have a question, make sure that you do type it into the chat and Krista will let me know. Okay, so when I click return, it has the student's grade, and this is like handing back a paper. So I click return, I'm handing back her work to her. She should be able to open it and see my comments and my sticker in her document. And then from there, she can continue to work on it and return it back to me and turn it back in. So that's a really neat feature in Google Classroom. All right, from here, let's say that I have a teacher that I need to share work with, because I know many of you are going to be collaborating, right? Or maybe you say, we're going to create a shared document or a shared folder, and my co-teacher is going to create everything for units 1 and 2, and I might create some documents for units 3 and 4. And you can create a shared folder in Google Drive. Okay, so let's say that I want to send this worksheet template that I've created to another teacher. There's a few ways you do that. So you do have a button over here. By the way, Livingston Parish Schools, do not share with your students using this button. Make sure you push everything out in Google Classroom so that you can go ahead and create that copy for each student and not have to worry about the editing rights being kind of messed up, okay? So it can get really tricky really quickly. So I recommend you not share with students from this button. This button, though, you can definitely reserve for your colleagues. So if you click on share, you're going to get this window that pops up. Okay, and so what I can do is I can add people. So if I want to share this document with Nikki Laverne, I can click on Nikki's name, and then I have a drop-down menu that says what she can and can't do. Okay, so she's an editor and she can actually change my original. So again, I caution you with that. If you don't trust someone with your original, don't use this method. Okay, but whenever I'm ready, I can send this to her and she's going to be able to work on the same document with me. Now, another way you can do this is come to the bottom. So when you click share, this pops up, click on the bottom portion. And this is one of my favorite Google hacks, is right now I have this set. If I copy this link that's provided, everyone in Livingston Parish Public Schools that has our accounts can view it. So there's a few ways you can change this. If I'm sharing with a teacher within my district and domain, then I can leave this the same. But maybe I want to change this to they can comment and they can edit. So you can do that and just push the link out. You can also change if you're sharing it with anybody and everybody, even outside of the domain. Okay, here's my favorite hack. Come to the top of the screen, and if I want to send this to another teacher, email, whatever it is, so that they can have a copy of it for their class, if I send them this link, they're going to be able to edit my slideshow. So there is a portion behind the / where it says edit, and everything after that, if we highlight it and replace it with copy, and then take that link, you can right click, copy that whole link now. Notice again, if you didn't catch what I just did, I changed the ending behind the / from the words edit, and then there's like a bunch of mumbo jumbo behind it. Change all of that to copy. If you highlight that link and email it to a teacher, this is what happens. So they're going to click on the link and it's going to pop up like this. I'm going to say copy document, would you like to make a copy? And so we call this forcing a copy on that teacher. And I recommend you use that regardless of trust, so y'all don't take it wrong if you get a bunch of links that are forcing you to make a copy, because the truth of the matter is sometimes we get in there, we don't realize what we're doing and we're changing someone's original. This is actually forcing that teacher to make a copy. They're getting everything you just did, except they're getting a copy. So now when they go in, they might want to add something to this, or, you know, add a few extra worksheets that are along the same line. You know, maybe there's 3 worksheets with AR and OR sorts that they want to push to their students, and they have 3 slides. So this teacher now is working within their own little domain. Okay, so they have the copy and now they're working on that. And so I recommend doing that as well. That is really a neat feature, and you can share just about any document within the Google applications in that manner. Okay, so just to recap, let me make sure I've gone over everything that I wanted to go over. We talked about grading assignments, posting some stickers and feedback, returning them to your students. Just to recap, remember there are several ways, and I'm going to start closing some of this out, several ways that you guys can get to Google Slides, because you need to go to Google Slides, okay? First way is to go google.com. Make sure you're logged in. And then I want to point out this waffle that's over to the right. Okay, Google calls this the launch app, launch the app icon. So it's right here. In Livingston Parish, we refer to this in Microsoft and in Google a lot of times as the waffle. Okay, some districts might call it the 9 square. But if you click on that, you've got all these options that pop up with your account. So you can get to slides from here by using this waffle, or you can do it how I showed earlier by typing in slides.google.com, or you can type in slides.new to open a brand new deck, or you can even do so from your drive, okay, new, and then scroll down and create a new template. So that's what you want to do first, okay? Now, lastly, I guess we can open this up for question and answer. Okay, great question. So the question we're looking at now is, can you reassign a slide deck? So if you want to keep inserting some different slides or worksheets into the same deck, you can. And there is an add-on called Slip and Slide. If you have your, and let me get out of here and show you guys this real quick. So if I have my slide deck, my worksheet created, if you go into add-ons in the menu, in Livingston Parish, Slip and Slide is actually already attached for us. Other districts, if you're tuning in from somewhere else, it may not be. So you may have to go to the Google add-ons or Google extensions store in Chrome, and you can find some add-ons. There are a lot of add-ons for slides. And so Slip and Slide, from what I understand, does allow you to insert slides into assignments you have already pushed to your students. And I have actually never had to use this before. I do plan to play with this and kind of get to know this little add-on. But the idea here is that your Google Classroom creates classroom folders in your Google Drive. Don't delete those classroom folders, because that's where all the assignments that you push through Google Classroom, they are actually stored in those folders on your Google Drive. And so let me click over here and show you what I'm talking about. In your Google Drive, I have a folder called Classroom, and I did recolor it, because if you right click on this, you can recolor it. And inside of that folder, there is going to be a folder for every class that I have had through the past few years. And you can see I have a bunch of them. So I do plan to get rid of the ones that I don't need this year, maybe rename them and put old in front of each one, and just so that they're out of the way. But what ends up happening is every assignment that you've created, there should be a folder within it. And this is my new class for this year, so there's nothing here. But there would be an assignment for that folder, and then you can actually use the Slip and Slide app to choose the assignment that you want to push that new file out to, and it will insert that. So definitely check that out. Go to YouTube and look up some Slip and Slide tutorials, and that's one way you can do that. Okay, any other questions? Can you see anything else? Okay, if you guys have a question, slip it into the chat, And what I want to do is post up the link real quick for the classroom survey. And don't forget that you will be able to click on the link. There's your classroom survey link. So if you want to type that in and fill out a survey for me, you will be able to go and click into the description down below in the video and find where the published link is to all the steps to everything I just said. And I spent a great deal of time making sure that was really clear in those for you. So I definitely recommend that you go ahead and click down there and take a look at all of those steps. I know that was quick. I know that was fast. But again, lots of options. If you're a music teacher, if you're an upper level teacher, insert some text boxes. Let your kids type right over it. That's great for charts and data entry as well. Lots of click and drag. You can create word choices out to the side of your slides and let the kids drag those words over and label parts of a cell or label parts of an atom, things of that nature. So if we don't have any more questions, I do want to make sure again that everybody does that. Let me go ahead and share my email with you as well. It'll take me just a second to pull that up.
Because this session was originally scheduled for Tuesday.
I'm pretty certain that we edited our survey. Yes, so what I'd like for you guys to do, choose Monday. I do believe we edited the survey to include this presentation just for Monday. Since we were virtual, we combined everything. And so because of that, I don't believe that the Tuesday session will be there. But you could definitely choose Monday at 10 if it's there. Okay, so let me share this real quick and go to. Okay, so here's another QR code as well if you want to use your phone instead of typing in that address. But I do thank you guys. Really thank you for joining me today. I hope if anything, you might have learned a few things you can implement and really take and push out to your students during this crazy time where we're having to adapt very quickly. Remember, sharing is caring, so help each other out. I do not mind helping you if you have questions. There's my email on the screen, so feel free to email me. And don't forget to complete the survey at tinyurl.com. I'll go ahead and take that banner off because if you're trying to scan the code, it's not going to work with the banner across. Let's hide that for you. There we go. Okay, so thank you. Give me some feedback and let me know if I can help you out. I'll give you guys a few seconds to get that survey done. If it says select Tuesday and you can actually, if you see the slides presentation on there, that is absolutely fine because we took 3 sessions and combined them into one. So it doesn't matter. That's okay if you have to select Tuesday and choose that session. No problem. All right, guys. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate you joining us.